Hello and welcome to the presentation of the proposed bylaw changes for the Minnesota Association of Townships, proposed to the township officers in spring of 2024. I'm Steve Fensky, the MAT General Counsel. This presentation will point out the bylaw changes proposed as they will correspond to the 5 ballot questions to be offered at the spring short course event. If you have any questions about this presentation or the proposed changes, please contact our office as soon as possible. Before reaching the proposals in detail, a brief discussion of bylaws is appropriate. Companies like MAT are primarily governed by laws provided by the state legislature. The statute sets the baseline rules for the operation of a company. Some rules can be modified while others cannot. Bylaws are one place in which the company can adopt those rules. Bylaws are best thought of as an appendix to the law that describes how the statute is going to apply to the particular company described in the bylaws. Bylaws will typically describe the company and its mission, in addition to selecting some of the optional rules allowed by the law. The bylaws and the statute work together to govern the company, but the statute is always primary. Bylaws usually change over time to reflect the policy preferences and new practices that the company finds advantageous in pursuit of its mission. MAT's bylaws describe the mission of the company to serve township officers and to further the township form of government. And they provide some of the rules that govern MAT. All of the rules provided in law and the bylaws are intended to further the mission of MAT. For the first time, town officers will vote at the spring short courses. The spring short courses offer the greatest chance for town officers to give their input on the proposals offered here. Minnesota statute sets a default quorum for action by the members as 10% of its voting officers, unless the quorum is changed by the bylaws. MAT's bylaws do not change the default quorum. Since MAT has about 8,500 voting officers, it must have about 850 votes cast to reach the quorum. The spring short courses routinely receive over 3,000 attendees, giving us ample opportunity to reach the quorum needed. This is available at no extra cost to town officers and giving them more chances to vote at any one of 15 locations over 15 days. The opportunity for member input is remarkable and we hope is preferred by the thousands of town officers who have never voted on MAT's bylaws before. With voting at the spring short courses, we will be implementing some new procedures aimed at producing a fair balloting process. Registration will be different this year than in past years. All officers who want to vote will need to check in at the registration desk. Each eligible town officer will be issued a ballot claim card that they must keep to receive a ballot. After lunch, MAT directors and staff will present the ballot and briefly describe the changes proposed. The ballot will include 5 questions printed on one piece of paper with questions on the front and back. Officers will be able to submit their ballot in one of 2 secured ballot boxes. Voting will continue until 15 minutes after the last educational class has ended, to allow all officers to exit and deposit their ballots if they have not already submitted it. Ballots will be secured throughout short courses and will not be counted until April 10th. A balloting committee of at least 5 MAT board members will oversee counting of the ballots. MAT will publish the results on the webpage and in the next edition of the Insider magazine. Please remember not to call with questions about the results until after April 10th. We also request your patience with us as we adopt these new procedures at spring short courses. The ballot includes 5 questions grouped by their article within the bylaws with a couple exceptions, and secondly separated based on questions and comments posed to MAT over the last 5 months of discussion of the proposals. The language proposed offers solutions to problems found with the bylaws as experienced by the board and also as reported by town officers over time. The board has taken questions and comments into consideration and made changes in this proposal since the December 2023 version to account for member input. Please remember that bylaws are expected to change over time, and the proposal here should not be considered a final version of the bylaws as they are likely to change again over time. The purpose here is to make progress and to make them better than they were before. Ballot question 1 proposes grammatical repairs to Articles 1 and 2. It proposes removing references to the Township Insurance Trust in Articles 3 and 4. Last, it leaves to the board discretion when the MAT treasurer is to give financial reports to the board. Copies of these proposed changes are available on the MAT website and were printed in the recent edition of the Insider magazine. But for convenience, we are showing the proposed changes being discussed here. This is Article 1 concerning the name and office location of MAT, which proposes only grammatical repairs. Article 2 concerns the mission of the Township Association. And as you can see in this slide and the next, the amendments are related only to grammar. This is the second half of Article 2. As you can see, the proposal in this slide and the prior slide do not affect the mission of MAT, nor the services township officers receive. The first two sections here refer to the Township Insurance Trust, which the board believes should not be referenced in the MAT bylaws. The proposed bylaws remove those references. The third item on this slide refers to the duties of the MAT treasurer. The current bylaws require the board treasurer to report on the financial condition of the company at all meetings of the board. The problem is that not all meetings of the board require a financial report, and the board's practice has been to have a financial report at the beginning of every regular meeting and when the board requests it. The board has not required financial reports at special or continued meetings, usually because they have had a recent report. The proposed amendments require the treasurer to be prepared to give financial reports, but it leaves to the board discretion when they are provided. The requirement to give financial reports at the annual meeting remain the same. Ballot question 2 concerns the membership of MAT and identifies who the voting officers are. It proposes to remove honorary membership, which has never been used as far as we know, and describes conditions already in statute for remaining a member of MAT. Current bylaws left some readers uncertain about what a member of MAT was and how MAT was to interact with individual township officers. The proposed bylaws make it clear the long-standing practice that townships are the members of MAT and that each township's supervisors, clerks, and treasurers are the voting officers who may vote in MAT business. Deputies may vote only if they are standing in the place of their appointing clerk or treasurer. Last, the amendment describes the rule already in statute that participation in MAT is provided based on membership that is maintained at the mutual agreement of the township member and MAT. This rule is already in place as a matter of law, but is proposed in the bylaws as a matter of convenience. Ballot question 3 proposes amendments to the annual meeting article, including adopting a new rule book, preventing vote harvesting via proxy voting, and stating the quorum rule already provided in statute and described earlier in this presentation. Ballot question 3 proposes adoption of the Democratic Rules of Order 10th edition as the rulebook for annual meetings of MAT. This would replace Robert's rules, which, while they are well known by name, are very complex and little understood in their content. The Democratic Rules provide an orderly process described in about 40 pages. In comparison, Robert's Rules 11th edition is 816 pages. Second, ballot question 3 proposes stopping the practice of voting by proxy and instead relying on in-person voting at spring short courses. MAT has seen little to no use of proxies in recent years, so this amendment is not expected to impact many town officers. While it can allow those who are absent to cast a vote in their name, many proxies are not used in that manner. Instead, proxies are often used in the practice of vote harvesting, in which individuals or groups seek the votes of others who never intended to vote, who may not be informed about the issues, and who may not care how their vote is cast. This process is problematic because it allows some people more votes than others. Requiring in-person voting encourages engagement in the process, encourages healthy discussion, provides a place to receive accurate information firsthand, and now an opportunity to have over 3,000 people vote in a convenient location. Since the spring short courses are going to be used for voting, the need for proxies is greatly diminished. This proposal tries to make voting more available to town officers while also preventing ballot harvesting. Last, question 3 proposes listing the quorum rule from statute directly in the bylaws for convenience. As described earlier in this presentation, Matt needs 10% of its voting officers in attendance or voting on a matter to constitute a quorum. That requirement remains regardless of whether this ballot question is approved, but for convenience and to reduce confusion, it is offered as part of the bylaws. Ballot question 4 concerns Article 6, which is about the directors of MAT. Ballot question 4 proposes adding all the conditions that can create a vacancy on the MAT board into the bylaws so that vacant positions can be filled appropriately. The question also amends the director elections process to prevent the possibility of elections by surprise and to provide fair notice to all parties of contested elections. Currently, some circumstances that people would think create a vacancy on the MAT board do not, because they are not listed as vacancy conditions within the statute or bylaws. The proposal here provides a clear list of the circumstances we expect could create a vacancy so that vacancies can be filled. Question 4 also proposes requiring candidates for the MAT board to file for candidacy if they intend to run for the position. This proposal is intended to prevent elections by surprise, in which a candidate runs from the floor at a district meeting. All town officers remain eligible for election to the board, but this proposal requires that they treat each other, the voters, and MAT fairly by giving notice of their candidacy. This encourages people to turn out for the election because they can expect a contested election will be held. It encourages discussion among candidates and voters leading up to the election, which should lead to a better candidate selection process. The proposal allows floor nominations if no candidate has filed for the position. Last, ballot question 5 concerns Article 8, which describes the process to amend the bylaws. The proposal would allow individuals to offer bylaw suggestions directly to Matt, regardless of whether the idea is approved by third parties. It also adds a reference found in law to the board's inherent discretion to make limited amendments to the bylaws that are then subject to a reverse referendum from the voting officers. The proposal provides that the bylaws could be amended either by the board through a process already described in statute or by a vote of the voting officers. The first process described in statute allows the board of directors to make limited amendments to the bylaws, but those amendments can be challenged by the voting officers at a later election. This power remains in law regardless of whether this bylaw amendment is passed. It is described in the proposal to make members aware of this possibility, but also to make town officers aware of the opportunity to challenge amendments to the bylaws made by the board. The second process is the one described in the current bylaws, in which town officers vote on changes to the bylaws, and that those changes must be passed by a 2/3 majority of a quorum voting on the matter. The proposal here allows individuals to offer bylaw amendments directly, rather than be required to go through a third party like the county units. Currently, the bylaws require bylaw proposals submitted by town officers to be approved 180 days before the annual meeting, but it sets a 60-day timeline for amendments proposed by the MAT board. The proposed bylaws simplify this timeline by providing a 60-day timeline for any amendment proposed to the bylaws. The notice requirements for the proposed bylaws remains the same. Thank you for your participation in the bylaw voting process. If you have questions about these proposals, please contact us by phone or email as soon as possible. We look forward to seeing you at Spring Short Courses.